Welcome to the 5th webisode in a new webinar series focused on suicide prevention, intervention, and postvention. We're now going to get started. I'm Allan, I'm a knowledge broker here at the Commission. I will be facilitating today's webinar. It looks like we're having some small technical difficulties with addressing questions to all participants, so I would ask as you're introducing yourselves to one another and asking questions that you submit them to the attendee option, and I have colleagues here in the room who will help me go through your questions following the presentation. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the Commission, we were formed in 2007 with a 10-year mandate. It's visible on your screen. We're a for system and social change that leads to improved mental health for Canadians, mostly with the people and organizations that have a role in transforming the mental health system. Now, in half of our 10-year mandate, we are shifting from knowledge generation to a sure focus on facilitating and creating change. Currently, our work is focused on 5 priority areas, suicide prevention being one of them. All of our work is informed by the Mental Health Strategy of Canada, which was released in 2012. The Commission is committed to the prevention of suicide in Canada and has made work in this area a top priority. This webinar series is to share knowledge and highlight promising practices both in Canada and internationally. So, we hope to create a platform in which people can speak openly and honestly about suicide and come away with a better understanding of the issue. Our work in suicide prevention, postvention, and intervention, we've recently launched a new program called 308 Conversations. 308 Conversations is a grassroots campaign spearheaded by the Commission that invites each of Canada's 308 members of Parliament to lead a conversation in their ridings about suicide prevention. This summer, MPs will convene community conversations between May and August. And drawing on this input from the conversations, the Commission will release a community model on suicide prevention this fall. More information can be found on our website, which is visible on your screen. To present today's speaker is Allan Strong, who's been actively engaged in the mental health field as a volunteer and employee for over 30 years. He's currently team leader for the Skills for Safer Living program and the Centre for Excellence in Peer Support program offered by the Self-Help Alliance, the peer support program of the Canadian Mental Health Association in Waterloo-Wellington-Dufferin, so Southern Ontario. Allan shared his experiences as a family member, a service provider, and as a person with the lived experience of a mental health problem at several conferences, television, and print media. Allan also performs with the local Stand Up for Mental Health group, a group that uses comedy to address issues about mental health. So, Allan, I will hand the mic over to you.
For that introduction, and I would also like to extend my thanks to the Commission to providing me the opportunity to talk about the Skills for Safer Living program this afternoon. So in the next hour or so, I have some information that will provide a context and high-level view of what we have been able to achieve with the Skills for Safer Living program in KW, and also the unique partnership that I'll touch on briefly, the unique partnership that we have with the same hospital and working with our colleague Yvonne Bergman. So could I have the next slide, please? I just wanted to give you a background context of our organization. CMHA, Waterloo-Wellington-Dufferin, up until a year ago, were 3 separate organizations: Canadian Mental Health Association, Grand River Branch, Trellis Mental Health and Developmental Services, and the Self-Help Alliance. On April 1st in 2013, those organizations merged to form the Mental Health Association Waterloo-Wellington-Dufferin. And the Self-Help Alliance is a peer support organization, so we are the peer program of CMHA Waterloo-Dufferin. By saying that, all of our staff identify and have the lived experience of first-hand personal experience with a mental health system. So we provide that context, and the ethos of peer support recovery is central to our work. That's an important thing to understand as we talk about how we came to being involved with developing the Skills for Safer Living program. So next slide, please. And I've covered that. Next slide, please. Just to give you a bit of the context as to why we made the decision to start to do this. In 2009, early 2010, Self-Help Alliance, we had 4 or 5 members of our programs died by suicide in a very short period of time. And one of those individuals had made 5 previous attempts. In essence, we got the phone call that we knew we would be getting but never wanted to get. And really, as we started to process our grief and to reflect on our experience, we recognized that suicide and suicide-related behavior and people's feelings and thoughts around suicide were something that we were experiencing a lot as people came in to peer support groups, into our recovery discussions. So we were really struck and really tried to figure out how and what do we do to respond, and what would be an appropriate way for us to respond to what we saw was a really startling, critical need in our community. We recognize that, especially for individuals that have made numerous attempts in our area, which is the Kitchener-Waterloo area, there wasn't any intervention, there wasn't any services, there weren't any programs to support, to address, and even be able to begin talk about strategies on how to address this behavior. Through Tim Nash, the executive director of the Waterloo Suicide Prevention Council, we were put in touch with Yvonne Bergmans, who was responsible in designing, along with Dr. Paul Links, the psychosocial intervention for repeat suicide attempters at St. Mike's Hospital. Next slide, please. So what we did is we talked to Yvonne and really wanted to understand what they were doing at St. Mike's. And we came to learn that they had been doing the PISA group at St. Mike's Hospital for over 10 years. And that they had been running this group, researching the group, and developing a program and an intervention model that they had evaluated, that had been run over several years, and was really that they found to be quite effective. So we really spoke to Yvonne and said, look, we'd like to bring this intervention to Kitchener-Waterloo, and we'd really like to work with you in developing an approach that would fit the needs of our community. So we agreed to work together to develop a program and to develop an approach that would be appropriate for our context in Kitchener-Waterloo and would really build on the rather innovative and one work that they have been able to do in St. Mike's. Vaughn has been instrumental in working with us in providing clinical support and supervision, working as a consult, provide information to our community, and to really help us establish a rapport and relationship and that context that enabled us to be successful in developing and bringing the program to Kitchener-Waterloo. Next slide, please. So what we first did is we applied to the Mental Health Foundation of Canada Post, and we were able to secure funding to run 2 groups in Kitchener in 2010. So our first Skills for Safer Living program, and we used the name change. We met with Yvonne and we brainstormed what we thought would be an appropriate name for our group. We weren't too enamored with the PISA, just because it's like either something in Italy that was leaning over or something you had with pepperoni and cheese. We really came up with the name Skills for Safer Living because we felt that was a very accurate way of presenting to our community what we were wanting to do. We wanted to provide opportunity for people to learn the skills and the strategies to help them make safer choices. So in our first group in November 2010, so we received funding for 2 groups from Canada Post. In 2011, we received a second grant from Canada Post to run 2 groups in Cambridge. Actually, our funding came from Canada Post, the Mental Health Foundation. And that really provided us the opportunity to start to run the groups, start to figure out how we could structure the intake process, how we could do appropriate outreach to the community, promote the groups, engage the community in awareness about the group. The piece that we added to the intervention group is for 20 weeks, and at the conclusion of the intervention group, we added an ongoing peer support group, and I'll touch more on that as I proceed through the presentation. Next slide, please. So we had a conversation with our local health integration network. For those of you not familiar with the way funding is done in Ontario, the province has offloaded, directed local communities to take more responsibility for health planning and decisions about how health dollars were to be spent and allocated on a local basis. So we started to have conversations with our local health integration network, which in our case is Waterloo-Wellington-Dufferin, and we submitted a plan to them, and we really started having a conversation about a business plan of how we'd go about offering the group on a permanent basis in this area. Part of that consultation around the business plan included having several engagement sessions with our community partners to really begin to address needs, to find out what would work best, what were the needs identified by our community, and how this intervention could respond to those needs. So that went on for several months, and we received official word that we were permanently funded in November of 2011 to provide a minimum of 4 groups a year in our Waterloo-Wellington area. So by that I mean we were funded to provide 2 groups in Kitchener, 1 group in Guelph, and 1 group in Cambridge. And each of those would be a 20-week intervention group followed by an ongoing peer support group that was tailored and directed specifically for people who had completed the group. Last year, in October of 2013, we received a funding enhancement from our LHIN to work with our partners in the post-secondary community in this area to look at developing a specific intervention for individuals that were university-aged. And we define university age being from the ages of 18 to 30. Next slide, please. So, in funding as well, as we are committed to doing a group focusing on youth in 2013, and that essentially was our pilot. It was seen as a pilot, and through that group we were able to then obtain the enhanced funding for the university age group, specifically for ongoing purposes. So now we are funded to provide a minimum of 5 groups, one of those being specifically targeted for university-aged youth. We're also negotiating and working with a community health center and a small rural community-based service agency to offer a group sited in a smaller rural community. In Waterloo-Wellington, there is a real divide between urban and rural realities, and I'm sure that I'm not speaking to anything that's not that unusual for any community across this country, is that there's a clustering of services in urban centers, and there's not as much services available in rural community. And in some of our outlying rural communities, death by suicide and engagement in suicide behaviour has become a real focal point and a real concern. So we're working with and developing strategies and ways to implement a group in a rural setting. And right now we are targeting beginning a group to be offered out of a community health center in a small rural setting in the northern part of Waterloo region. So our hope is by providing this within a rural context, we can also begin to address and get better understanding of some of the diverse needs that exist in a rural community, and also some of the diverse needs and requirements about trying to establish this type of intervention in a smaller community. Next slide, please. So far, well, this is a little out of date. We have completed 12 groups. At the time of preparation of the slides, we have started and delivered a university age group over last summer, and we have just recently completed another group in Guelph, and we've got another intervention groups being delivered in Cambridge and in Kitchener. Generally, we are able, the way our schedule is, we offer 2 groups concurrently, so we often have 2 groups running at the same time. Now, as I said, the groups are 20 weeks in length. They're 90 minutes a week. And it is facilitated, the groups are facilitated by a team of 3. We also have completed an ideation pilot group and received feedback from our community that there was a concern that the group was geared to folks who have made an attempt, at least a minimum of 1 to 2 attempts. We've recognized in receiving feedback and input from our community, there's a high number of individuals that engage in ongoing ideation, and the concern is that what intervention can we provide for these individuals. We did a pilot group, and that group was preceded by a literature review looking at what interventions work best for individuals with ongoing ideation. And we found that, and in consultation with Yvonne, we found that what was currently being done in the intervention group would fit well with ideation. So currently we've completed the pilot, and we're looking to secure more permanent ongoing funding that we can offer the ideation group as well on a regular basis. Next slide, please. So our attrition rate is currently about 30%. At one time it was 40%, and people are saying, well, how do people leave, or what do people, how do people come to leave? And in looking at that, we've let several people leave because they've been engaged with other programs. Some people find employment, and some folks just say this is not an appropriate fit for me at this particular time. And we have not had any one of our participants who've engaged or have been involved with the program die by suicide that we're aware of. You know, we lost track of some individuals. We had one person has died who was a participant in the group, but that was through natural causes. So we do not have had anyone die by suicide who's been involved with the program. Next slide, please. The intervention group is run by two group coordinators, and then we have one peer facilitator. The coordinators for the group, we have a total of 6 staff that work with the program. The 4 coordinators all have identified as people with a lived experience and who have indicated their experience and involvement as the first person experiencing the mental health system. Coordinators also, we have folks with the academic credentials. We have 3 individuals who have an MSW and one person who's done graduate work within family counseling and support at University of Guelph and is currently doing an internship to develop hours to be credentialed with the American Marital and Family Association. Our 2 peer facilitators both have undergraduate degrees and profound experience working within the system. We also offer to ensure that all of our staff also have training in ASSIST, Applied Suicide Intervention Skills Training, Nonviolent Crisis Intervention, and Basic First Aid. So our staff team brings a real wealth and diversity of experience to the group and offer that combination of lived experience and academic and professional training. Slide, please.
And so that voiceover, we had a YouTube video running in the background that we'll show shortly, but I didn't realize that it was running for you folks, so we'll carry on now.
Okay. Peer facilitators are involved in the intervention group, and the peer facilitators are there to provide that support and that continuity of support for the peer group. The coordinators are responsible for delivering the material and the content. And so we have the staff from each of our sites in Kitchener, Cambridge, and Guelph available to be involved with the peer group. For a second, and just speak briefly about our outcome for skills group is to decrease the intensity, the frequency, and duration of suicide-related behavior. And we recognize that we're not going to eliminate the behavior altogether. However, we want to provide people with the opportunity to develop the skills and strategies and to enhance their toolbox, so to speak. So as opposed to engaging in suicide-related behavior when they experience profound distress, that they can interrupt that behavior and use other skills and strategies as opposed to engaging in suicide-related behavior. So the focus really is on developing those skills and providing people strategies to, as I said, decrease the frequency, duration, and intensity of the feelings and the experience and the behavior around suicide. Next, please. Our criterion for the group, we did make a bit of a change from the criterion as different from the group that's offered at St. Mike's. Yvonne's group in St. Mike's indicate that people need to have at least 2 self-reported attempts. In consultation with our community, they said, well, why would you wait for the second attempt? So we have indicated that people must have at least 1 self-reported attempt. To put into context, the average number of attempts that our participants have made when we look at the sort of across all the groups that we've offered is the average number of attempts individuals have made has been 7. Of course, that's average, so there's a upper level and there's a lower level, the minimum being 1. The highest number we've had has been 35. So 2 years prior to being involved with the group, individuals report that they've had an average of 5 emergency department visits and 5 hospitalizations. And once again, there's a high degree of variation within that, but these are individuals who are engaging, high incidence of engaging in suicide-related behavior and also presenting to emergency department and making use of crisis services. We also let people be involved and have stable housing. There's a recognition that if you don't have a security and tenancy in a secure place to stay, it's hard to work on other and be involved in working, making changes in other areas of your life if your housing is not stable at that point. We let people be engaged in receiving support from community-based support systems, either a case manager, a social worker, a therapist, doctor, and with that, because the group is therapeutic, but it's not therapy. Our intervention is 90 minutes a week, once a week for 20 weeks. Individuals and our experiences, individuals may or may not be triggered. They may have significant issues or experience distress during the course of the group, but we're not in the position to support individuals to do that. We can help and we can do the best we can. However, we really encourage and ask that people have those community connections, and we also ask and receive consent from each of our participants to be able to communicate to their community supports, so we can ensure that circle of care and safety, and that we are all working together to help the person identify and stay safe. We also realize that people will make choices and may be using substances and drugs or alcohol as a way to cope. We ask that people not use those substances to the point where it would impair their ability to participate in the group. We also ask that individuals, we recognize that 20 weeks is a long commitment, and we want to ensure that people, when we do an interview, aware that it is a 20-week commitment and that they have the means and the methods in which to be able to get to group and actively participate. Next slide, please. The big process that we have is we have a telephone screening to determine fit. So we ask individuals, for basic demographic information. We ask individuals what are their principal supports, who are they supported by in the community, have they made at least 1 attempt to end their life, are they familiar with group process, that can they commit to being involved with the group for 20 weeks. So at that point, after the telephone screening, then we would do an intake assessment. And essentially the assessment is about a minute to a 2-hour interview, really trying to collect a sense of history. It's our way of starting to understand the context of the person and what their experience has been, what their history has been as far as mental health, their own family history, their relationship with suicidal history, their understanding of the difference between self-harming behavior and suicidal behavior. We also ask people, what are their strengths? What do they hope to get out of the group? What are their hobbies? What are their strengths as they see it? What are their hopes and aspirations by becoming involved in the group? What do they hope to achieve? So really, the intake assessment is our way of starting to build that connection and to understand their context and understand what they will be bringing and what is their experience. We have a series of per-group questionnaires that we distribute as well. Now, some of the areas that we've received inquiries and referrals from the group, we've received a lot of self-referrals. We receive referrals from family health teams, both hospitals in our community, all 3 hospitals in our community, a number of referrals from crisis services as well, and a number of referrals from other counseling agencies. Generally, people select out at either at the telephone screening or at the intake assessment. Really, if it's determined that the person fits and meets the criterion and they're willing to commit at the telephone screening, generally 95% of the folks who go from telephone screening to intake assessment then go into the group. The telephone screening, it's determined that this might not be a good fit or people don't meet the criterion specifically for the group. There also is information provided about other community resources and other supports that may or may not be appropriate for the person to be able to engage in. So we really try to provide a lot of information for folks and participants and people who express an interest in the group at the telephone screening. Next question, slide, please. So as a group is 20 weeks, 90-minute sessions. And the process is we do a quick check-in. We ask people to talk about, was there any aha moments, any light bulb moments, so to speak, anything that came to mind during the course of the week? What skills did you make use of this week, and what were some of your challenges? And a part of the group is really focused on content. As I said, Yvonne Bergmans and Paul Links developed the curriculum for the program. And I will not, Yvonne prefers that it's being called a guidebook, as over the course and the history of the development of the program, Yvonne is very clear that this is a living document. It's a very organic document. And it's a co-creation. Each group is a co-creation between the facilitators and the participants. And participants, past participants and current participants, have contributed greatly to the development of the curriculum through their feedback, through their input, and their contributions. So it really is a living, breathing guidebook that is undergoing constant tweaking, but the core components are consistent. But participants and staff bring their diverse skills, experiences, and insights that contribute greatly to the development of the material and the relevancy of the material for the individuals, because it really is a reflection, each group is a reflection of the participants, and it really is a co-creation. And when we started the group, there was some members of our community who expressed concern that by bringing people together who've engaged in ongoing suicidal behavior, that there would be a contagion and there would be an overt emphasis on suicide and our experience and our desire and our direction. And this is something that's quite supported, reinforced, and stressed by Yvonne and our facilitators. Is the content may be dealing with engaging and talking about eliminating suicidal behavior or reducing it, but the emphasis is on affirming and focusing on life. One former participant in Toronto once said, as they're leaving the group, their reflections on the group process was, when I started this group, I was dying to live. I'm dying to die, and as I leave this group, I'm dying to live. We've had similar reflections and similar sentiments expressed, that the group is really about affirming life and engaging conversation about life and reducing the frequency, duration, and intensity of suicide-related behavior. Next slide, please. The content covers really 4 key areas. Keeping safe, and really developing and enhancing skills as far as personal rights, safety, crisis de-escalation, safety networks. I'm not going to read the slides, you can see that. The next content area is emotional literacy and diagnostic education. The third component is problem solving, and the fourth component is relationship management. So the group itself, in the process process of the group, once again, is very skills intense and very skills focused. And it is talking about developing strategies and skills and recognizing how to keep oneself safe. Some fundamental skills that we look at early on in the group is really identification of early warning signs, triggers, what are some areas in your life that cause you distress, what are anniversaries. It was about recognition, also developing the language to understand what the feelings are that you are experiencing and giving voice to those feelings. One of the skills and areas of focusing on is recognizing that a feeling is just a feeling, and if feelings can't kill you, but behavior will. So it's a very strong focus on, once again, skill development, skill, and recognizing your own patterns and your own routines and what areas cause you distress and what are your current coping strategies and how can you build upon what you do well already and develop and enhance those skills. Next slide, please. The one cardinal rule that we have in the group is that we do not, the group participants are told, and it's reinforced consistent, that there isn't any discussion about ways or means. There is no conversation about what you would do or what you have done, how you've made attempts. The focus is really on feelings. What were you experiencing at the moment, and what choices and what strategies that can you engage in to help keep yourself safe. That's one rule that we really do stick to, and really encourage folks to focus on what were you feeling, what was your level of distress, how do you understand that at that moment, and what choices can you make to keep yourself safe. Next slide, please. The other things that we do in the group is we provide a lot of information about community resources. We've invited and had members of our crisis services in our region come and speak to group members. Partly that is help people become aware of crisis services. Some of our participants, a great number of our participants, aren't aware of existing support services or crisis services, or sometimes they've had a bad experience, and we have found that having staff involved with crisis services come in and meet face-to-face has really helped to reduce some of the anxiety and fear about contacting crisis services. We also provide information about other community-based agencies, as in what's available as far as respite and other support. We also have a regional and a adopted crisis plan that is used across our region, and we provide that to each and every participant, and it is something that we work at throughout the course of the group, really helping folks create and author their safety plan about how they can help and work towards keeping themselves safe. Next slide, please. Now, earlier at the conclusion of the 20 weeks, we invite each and every participant who's completed the 20 weeks to become involved in an ongoing peer group. The peer group is a way to continue on and maintain and nurture and further develop those connections that are made in the intervention group. It's also a form and a vehicle for us to provide that ongoing information and consultation and review of the skills that are taught in the group. So the peer group is a way to maintain that connection to the material and to the support that's available. So the peer facilitator from the intervention group is involved in the peer group. So there's a connection and there's that familiarity to somebody within the group, and there's a familiarity with other participants. Next slide, please. I've spoken to that. Next slide, please. This is some each of our group at week 19 we do a focus group. We have a structured interview that we do, and this is a continuation of what Allan has developed and done in Toronto. And there's a continuation of the focus group questions to gain input and information about what participants have experienced in the group, and that is done at the end of at week 19. I have my my screen, my computer disappear here, so give me a moment. Next slide, please. This is feedback that we received from group participants as part of the focus group. Next, please. I'd like to, we did a video interview with participants and also some of the staff who identify as individuals with the lived experience. This is an 8-minute video. It's a compilation of interviews that we did with participants to gauge and to hear their experiences and provide them the opportunity to reflect on their experiences. It's about 8 minutes, so I would ask that we play the video.
Sure. We're going to try our best to make this stream well. It might be choppy for some people, but if you have trouble watching it on your screen, we would encourage you to go to the website later or YouTube and type in skills for safer living, but we'll give this a try. Okay, that's not going to work. So give me one more minute here. Maybe you can just describe who's in the video while I upload this.
The views that you're going to see are a combination of participants and also peer staff. We intentionally did not identify who's who because we really wanted to focus on the experience of the group.
Okay, so here we go.
My first impression of the group was a scary sensation. I think maybe because of the unknown, it was something new. It was a subject that was very, very touchy and meant a lot to me, but also was searching for a lot of answers. You didn't know respect, you didn't know where things would go, how much you'd have to share about yourself, what other people would think, and all that sort of stuff.
What I found most helpful was what I was most afraid of. Was listening to other people's stories and where they've come from.
Like I was amongst people who were like me, and that I wasn't the freak that I always believed that I was.
Other people could really relate to how I was feeling and a lot of things that I was experiencing.
Sorry, I'm going to have to stop it. I'm hearing from a lot of our participants that they're able to hear or view the video. So I see that a few participants have sent out the link. And so we would encourage everybody to check it out after, because I do think this really speaks to the importance and, you know, the passion of the people who have participated and also of their success. So carry on with your slide presentation, Allan.
Well, sure, and that pretty much covers the slide. I know it's next. I think the next slide is actually any comments or questions.
Okay.
Just to give you an update of where we are now, we're in conversations with children's mental health providers in this area to look at how we can tweak and offer the group to a high school aged audience, and we're very early on in that conversation. And the reason we've started the conversations there in this area, we've had a number of requests about offering it to a high school aged audience. And of course, we'll be working closely and engaging Yvonne in those conversations as well. The conversations here have just started. One of our particular challenges that we have found is that initially when we started the group in 2010, initially building a rapport and building interest in our community was somewhat reluctant. Of course, there was the concern about bringing people together who engage in repetitive suicidal-related behavior. However, once word of mouth and once the experience of the group started to be known throughout our community, we had, unfortunately, it's a very paradoxical position to be in, where we have far more demand for the group than we have ability to respond. As I said, currently we are funded to do 4 groups in the community, and we will be starting the university-aged group in partnership with Laurier and Waterloo this fall. However, currently we have a waiting list for people waiting to be involved in the group in our Kitchener-Waterloo area, and then we also have a similar situation in our Guelph area. So we're constantly engaging in conversations with our funders about ways that we can work together to meet demand for the group and to meet demand for these individuals who engage in the ongoing behavior. Paradoxically, it's one of those things that we started to build and we started to be able to respond. However, we in some ways are victims of our own success, in that word of mouth and participants have been quite open in sharing their experiences and their successes. We've had quite a few folks return to school, and people get on with the business of life, so to speak. I think we've got about 15 minutes left or so in our time together. If there are any questions or comments, I once again wanted to thank the opportunity provided by the Mental Health Commission to be able to be involved in this webinar. And I also want to recognize the contributions of the staff that I work with here at CMHA WWD as a very committed, passionate, engaged group. And I also want to acknowledge the phenomenal work of Yvonne Bergmans and Paul Links in developing the program, and also their stewardship, their leadership in creating this very innovative and yet critical response to this need in our community.
Thank you so much, Allan. This was a great presentation. We actually have a number of questions that have come in, so I'm sure we can fill this last 15 minutes with some questions. Okay. The first one that we had come in was, you mentioned that this program is being offered in rural areas, and so one of the questions is, how do you manage the privacy and stigmatization concerns for a rural community, because they are smaller and there's challenges with that?
That is a conversation that we've had with our rural partners. That's a very profound issue. What we've done is we really try to be very careful about selecting the site that we have it. We've selected and worked with a group at a local community health center. So it's an agency that provides a lot of support and a multiple number of services. So we really tried to pay attention and recognize that that's an issue that is going to be very sensitive to in the way we advertise and even promote the group. You know, we've indicated we would not put anything on the exterior of the building saying this group is running here. We would really make use of staff and also the internal resources of the community health center to promote the group. We are intentional about not selecting a mental health organization in a small community. And in this particular community, there isn't an existing mental health organization. So we really try to pay attention to the location, what type of agency it was going to be in. We're even working and talking to our colleagues in the rural communities to understand what would be the most appropriate way. That's also critical too, is really understanding the context of the community and engaging in doing community outreach and really working with folks and individuals from the rural area to really be sensitive, aware, and have the rural folks be our guides in how we do the appropriate outreach. So that's time consuming, and I think it's important work to invest in, and the time is well invested to develop that relationship and that understanding of the context to ensure that we're not going to be able to totally eliminate any stigma or discriminatory beliefs, but I think it's important that we really work with the individuals and the agencies that know the community best so we can design a way of working with the community that will best meet the needs of the community in that context.
That's great. And that's great follow-up to the next question, which is also demographic-based. And I had a question about you having any clinical wisdom about how to run this group with teens.
Well, I've begun conversation. We've had a couple of teens in our groups. Generally, what we find, and this is something Allan has found through her experience, that working with teens, it's important to have like-minded folks or individuals of the same age in the group. We're, as I said, in consultation with some children's mental health providers in our community to talk about how we can change the way our curriculum is delivered to engage youth and to engage teens. So I have a whole lot of, I have some theories. One is that I think we really have to vary the way we present the material, make it very engaging. The group is talk-oriented. I think we have to look at how can we deliver material in different manners, maybe by use of social media or videos or other activities, varying the type of material that's used for engagement, respect their experience and really, respecting and engaging young folks in how would you design this program. So I think for us, it's going to be a steep learning curve, and we're really looking at working with agencies that work with teens on how would be the best way to do that. Great.
Slide 19 and on slide 22, you touched on skills that are provided to participants. So those questions are quite related, but basically participants are wondering what kind of skills do you provide to participants deal with stressful events in their lives to avoid going ahead to suicidal ideation?
Well, we have a big list of distractions. We actually provide a list of distractions. We really look at helping people identify what are things that have worked for you, what are some distractions. So we graded and collected ideas and input from former participants, from staff, really what works. So we like to call it the big list of distractions. And we look at a variety of coping strategies on how you can do something different other than engaging in behavior. So one is distractions. What works best for you? What are some other things? Other people say, well, are there specific individuals that you can talk to? So it's developing the plan, building on what folks may have done already, and also providing information and strategies. So it's creating a comfort box, visualization it really is looking at what are the diverse ways that you can do to distract yourself, and have a printed material that we distribute to folks. So it's just not something that's presented in group. We provide tangible handouts and lists and ideas and resources. We provide community events. We provide information about community events. And we really try to provide tangible things that people can take away with and make use of on an ongoing basis. So it's not only talking about it, but it's also demonstrating and then providing the information and stuff that people can take with them. So it's about building your toolkit, building about what will work for you, and also building the skill about recognizing, where are you at on a scale of intensity? What works for you when you're feeling calm? What works for you when you're starting to experience some distress? What works for you when you're really starting to boil over, so to speak? So part of the strategy is also recognizing what triggers, where are you at as far as intensity. Part of the strategy as well as identifying early in that cycle when you are becoming or experiencing distress. I spend a lot more time talking about that, but that's sort of, it really is building upon what people do already, enhancing what they have, expanding their toolkit, providing more strategies, and helping them build the networks that will provide them the support to get through those distressing times.
Great, thank you. The next question is around evaluation, and our participants wondering if you have any data about potential cost savings, as a result of people having to use less primary care services or other resources.
Well, that's something we've had the conversation. We've been engaging in conversations with our hospital partners to look at getting to the point where we can do a comparison of emergency department usage and then engagement in community. So the conversation, we started to talk to our hospitals and look at ways that we can look at data for participants pre-group intervention, during the group, and post-group. So very early in that process, and what we want to do is really do a comparison. So the hypothesis is we would see a decrease in the use of emergency department and an increase in the intentionality of the use of the emergency department and crisis services through hospital, and then also that decreases and becomes more intentional, an increase in the intentional use of other support systems. Stumbling blocks at the moment are really looking at how do we address confidentiality, and then how do we begin to get the data from the hospital, and how we can develop the structures to support the data collection and the analysis. We don't have the resources at this point to do that. We're hoping to be able to figure out ways we can get funding to look at working with our hospitals to get data and then to do the analysis about that. So ideally, what I would like to do is to be able to do the pre-group engagement, or what was the person's contacts prior to group as far as use of emergency department usage, and then what was the usage like during the group, and then look at 6, 18, and 24 months post group intervention. So that's the ideal that we're working towards. I know Yvonne has also done some work on evaluation and some of the work she's done with the pre and post instruments that she makes use of and that we provide her with. And if people are interested, I can put you in touch with Yvonne, or somebody can put you in touch with Yvonne about some of the research that she's done.
Throughout this webinar, Jen Ward, my colleague in the room, has been offering to link participants with Yvonne. And as well, sorry, questions for Mike. It's questions for Allan on your screen.
That's
I apologize.
Okay. Yeah.
We did have a number of questions from participants around getting access to some of the tools that you've mentioned, like the pre-group questionnaires and the suicide assessment resource that you use. I'm just wondering if people can connect with you to receive those tools.
Sure. You can connect with me, and once again, Yvonne is the author of the guidebook, and I know if people are interested in looking at the material or talking to Yvonne about the material, I would really encourage people to talk to Yvonne as well about the guidebook and some of the rationale and choices that she made in the instruments. I'd be happy to talk and share with folks as well, but I would also really encourage people to touch base with Yvonne, as she's the architect and the designer of the guidebook and has been doing this for quite some time, and she's extremely knowledgeable and extremely generous in sharing, and she's very passionate about this work as well.
Well, we have a number of other questions that have come through, but it looks like we're almost out of time. So any questions that we have missed will be forwarded along to Allan for his response. Contact information is also available on the screen if you have any questions or want access to the slides. They will be available for download in both French and English within a week following this presentation. And one last thing that I wanted to mention before we say thank you to Allan is an upcoming virtual conference taking place online in November. It's in partnership with the Mental Health Commission and Canadian Association for Suicide Prevention. The theme this year is conversations about community collaboration and hope. Throughout those 3 days, we'll have a number of webinar presentations, poster presentations, and video spotlight sessions focusing work that pertain to suicide prevention, intervention, and postvention. The call for abstracts is now open and will close on July 14th. So if you want more information on that, please visit the castconference.ca website or email us at virtualconference@suicideprevention.ca. So thank you so much for your time and your presentation today. It was wonderful. And thank you to all the participants for such great comments and questions. We will continue the conversation through collaborative spaces over the next few days. So if there's questions that you'd like to ask or resources that you would like to share, please visit the Commission website for more information. Thank you, everybody, and have a great day.
Thank you.